So like I said, this is the basics, and we are doing, however, it does not cover fully mobile applications, so it is not a specific for mobile applications, and this course is mobile application security. So we need to understand our methodology here. So what I will do, what I will continue is I will go with the mobile application, like penetration testing standards. And so although there are some like 7 parts in the the PTES document we have checked. So these 4 parts can be like the methodology for our mobile application specific methodology. So there can be also like the 0, which stands for like the pre-engagement stuff, like the scope we have talked about. However, it's not like a real technical methodology, so this can be so this is mostly like a more technical methodology what we will be talking about. So reporting is the soft skill here mostly, but these 3 are the hard skills. So what we will be covering in this course is the hard skills mostly, and for 1 or 2 lessons for this soft skill. Sorry, yeah. So that's why, so this is also a soft skill, and that's why I will be passing. So that's why I didn't write it methodology here, but it can also be written. So basically, as you remember, the reconnaissance was also the first one in the PTES document. So what we mean by reconnaissance here is like this is the initial phase, and we try to find some information about the application. So the goal is to learn as much as possible about the target application and the company behind it. So what will we need is corporate intelligence, app store analysis. So what we mean by corporate intelligence, so we try to review the company documents, like it can be earning reports and press releases that reveals information about the mobile application. So let's just say it's like a ABC company, and the ABC company has released some app and they do some like press conference about it. So that press conference can contain some specific information about you, so you really need to check it out. And for the app store analysis, you need to find the app in the app store if it is published, and you can read some user reviews for clues about functionality, bugs, and potential security issues. So this might reveal you some of the information you are trying to find, and you can identify the developer and any other apps they have published which might share common code or infrastructure. And also, let's just think that there's a third party XYZ company and they does some mobile application for companies. So let's just think that ABC is the one we're testing and C is like another company, and they share like the same infrastructure. So it is most possible that they will also share the same vulnerabilities. So when you find the vulnerability here, because this app is written by this and this app is written by this, you will probably like find the vulnerability in here too. So this can also cause you like when you find an app in another app, you can also find another vulnerability in an app you don't even know it exists. So that's why you need to identify the developer. Like I said, try to understand the infrastructure and the. Also, you can examine the version history and patch notes to understand how the app has evolved and what vulnerabilities may have existed versions. Also, some of the developer notes contains like the security patches. So you can also learn about the old vulnerabilities that might give you hint about the the fixing of this old vulnerabilities, or in sometimes you can also try to bypass the old vulnerability here. So let's just say there was a vulnerability in version 1 and they fixed it in version 1.3. Let's just say, and you are in version 1.3. However, if you find out how they fixed the vulnerability, you can try to bypass those mitigation functions, those mitigations, in order to trigger the same vulnerability as well. So basically, for this reconnaissance section, we try to get some corporate intelligence, we try to app store analysis, try to read some user reviews, we try some developer identification, and try some version history. All of these components and many more can lead some critical information about our app. Okay. Okay, so right now I will be going with the static. So basically, static analysis, the section that involves examining the application's code and resources without running it. So let me give you like a quick break for this and give you some insights about the matter. So in when you're examining a code, like a packed code, it can be like an exe, or it can be a binary file, and so on. So okay. Whether you're searching like a vulnerability, or whether you're analyzing a malicious activity, so there are basically two types of approaches that are actually not that similar. So one of them is a static method and other one is dynamic methods. So what you do in static methods is you don't run the code, so you don't need a runtime, whether it's like a binary or APK or so on. And you don't run the code, you only analyze what you have. So basically you can say that analyze what you have. And in the dynamic, you run the code actually, and you try to debug the code and manipulate the code and so on. So basically this is the basic difference between two methodology. So in the first one you don't need a runtime or environment, and in the second one you need that. And what can you do with this basic information is there you might see some malware analysis courses and stuff. So basically in Takkın we also have malware analysis course, and check them out if you are interested. And in the malware analysis you will also encounter with static and dynamic analysis. Like in APK, mobile security course, you will be talking about static and dynamic analysis. If you're a mobile malware, you are working with mobile malware, you will also encounter with static and dynamic part. So this is the basics of static and dynamic analysis, static and dynamic methods. So for an APK file, like I said, since we have this kind of a package, we also do some two-phased assessment methodology. So we start with dynamic. We start with static and do some dynamic. And what we do in static analysis in the APK, in the context of the APK, in the context of application, mobile application. So we try to find some hard-coded sensitive information. We will do some labs for all of them, so you will be covering them all, don't worry. And we will do some common findings like API keys. We will find usernames, passwords, URLs, and embedded stuff. So this might leak some information about the application. We can try to find some API endpoints and storage buckets that application uses. Then we can do some dynamic testing to those endpoints and servers. We can identify some raw SQL queries that might leave us some insights and information about the infrastructure we are facing with. And we can also find some sensitive customer data, which is like how the user information is handled. We need to understand. So this is like the basics security flows in mobile applications. So we try to find security flows. Basically, this is the ultimate goal of what we're doing in static analysis. So this kind of security flows contains the coded sensitive information, backend infrastructure information, SQL queries, sensitive customer data, and so on. So these are like the basic stuff we checked when we were doing a static analysis for a penetration. So for the dynamic analysis, sorry for this inconvenience. So like I said, what we do in dynamic analysis, this phase involves the analyze application in the runtime. So these runtimes can be done in a physical device or the emulator. And in this course, like I said, for the ease of usage, we will mostly go with the emulator. However, if you are like interested in this mobile application stuff, mobile penetration test stuff, I suggest you to get a real device and root it at the end in order to work well. However, like a simple emulator also does this job for us, so it is like you don't need a physical device right now for this kind of course. However, if you go deep in this matter, I suggest you to get a real device. So basically, the core objective of our dynamic analysis is the application's behavior. We try to understand the app's behavior and manipulate it to fight vulnerabilities actually. So this method contains like we need to do some traffic interception. So we will use some basic proxy applications like Burp Suite, and we try to monitor and modify the data app sends to servers and data it receives from the servers. We will also do some memory dumping and analyze the device's memory if the app scores some of the secrets insecure. We also try to bypass SSL pinning. So SSL pinning actually some mechanism that prevents us from getting the traffic interception, and there are some like bypass techniques for that, and we will be doing them. And also we check for common vulnerabilities in the OWASP top 10. So as you remember, we have talked about the OWASP top 10 for mobile devices, and so we have checked the OWASP top 10 for mobile devices. However, like I said in that section, I really suggest you to check the OWASP top 10 for also web applications, because the web and mobile are like a real like brother and sister in this matter, and you need to understand some of the web application flows in order to understand the mobile application flows. So I really suggest you to go back to basics and try to learn some web security if you are in this. And for the dynamic analysis techniques, yeah, these are like the basic stuffs we check. So, and basically the last section is the reporting element. So like I said, we will be talking about a good report section. In the last section, what makes a report good. However, in like a basic matter, so this report needs an executive summary, high-level overview. It needs detailed explanation of each vulnerability and references from OWASP top 10. And the criticality of each finding and clear steps to use it. And it's also important to mention any positive security implementations that were found. So For instance, that you find that you need a VPN in order to access the application. That's a good security measure. You can also write that I need a VPN in order to access this app. Otherwise, I couldn't access it. So on. So basically, in order to make it a summarization, we have talked about the PTES, like the penetration testing standards, and its relevance with our mobile methodology here. So PTES is like a more general stuff that is not specific for mobile. And there are some like OWASP guided mobile security methodologies. And I will give you links for all of these documents. However, I won't like read you all of the documents in the videos. I just read some of them in order to give you some insights, some of like creative ideas for you. However, I really suggest you to check the theoretical parts of these methodologies here in order to understand what we're doing, in order to understand what is a vulnerability, like what is a security issue, and what is a like a bug, and what is like a risk, and so on. So in order to like get the basic information about this kind of keywords, I really suggest you to read all of the documents you can find. I really suggest you to talk with like a large language model. You can like talk them with like I am blah blah blah. I know this, I know this, I work with this, I need to learn blah blah blah, like mobile application pen testing. What I need to learn, I don't know this terminology, I don't know this keyword, and so on. So I will suggest you to do this all.